Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Mutt,
And I'm Mrs. Mutt.
and this is a conversation with Mutts. And tonight's topic, we're going to be discussing two of Wisconsin's most infamous and famous uh, serial killers. Yes.
No, I was going to tell you go ahead. Yours was before mine.
That is true. I am going to be discussing Mr. Ed Gein.
So if I remember correctly, he was the first
Yes.
in the state.
First in the state. That is correct. He was the first recognized serial killer in the state of Wisconsin. Ed was born on August 27th of 1906, the second son of George and Augusta Gein in La Crosse, Wisconsin. His mother was fanatically religious and would often tell Ed and his brother Henry that they were only safe on their farm from the wiles of sex crazed women who sought to pull them into the wickedness. This caused Ed to both love and fear his mother. Typical Freudian, if you ask me. Around 1915, Augusta moved the family to a small farm in Plainfield, Wisconsin. I was saying Plainsfield, like there was more than one earlier, but Ed rarely left the farm except to attend school, and even then, from what I heard on some of the videos, his mother protested. However, the state saw otherwise. By all accounts, Ed's father was a failed drunken farmer who was very much under the thumb of Augusta. She pretty much ran the house. And as I said earlier, she was the reason that she told Ed that, she told the boy's father that they were moving. Things were so bad for the Geins that they had no power or indoor plumbing. I'm sorry, I need my indoor plumbing. Sorry, folks, that's just the way it works.
Yeah, I've kind of gotten attached to it. Granted, I've never been without it except for camping or what have you.
Yeah.
No.
I mean, my mama didn't have it until she was indoor plumbing until she was like 9, and they used to have to fetch well water. But she grew up in Kentucky. Go figure. Ed was seen by the townsfolk as quite friendly and quiet, but a bit of an odd duck. He often did babysitting jobs for the women around town for extra money. Ed's father, George Philip Gein, died on April 1st, 1940, from heart failure due to alcoholism, or so they say. After the boy's father's death in 1940, George and Ed started working odd jobs to help with the finances. On May 16th of 1940, Henry Gein, 1944, you were correct, thank you. On May 16th of 1944, Henry Gein, the older brother to Ed, supposedly died while fighting a grass fire on the Gein farm. Ed had actually run for help and had stated that he didn't know where Henry was. Oddly enough, he was able to later lead authorities directly to Henry's body. Henry was found with several blows to the head, which were attributed to him hitting his head on a rock. Did he pound his head on the rock? I mean, they did say several blows to the head.
It sounds like he spent some time in Missouri State Prison after watching that one last night.
Maybe. His head on a rock. The entire situation, however, was eventually swept under the rug and forgotten about. The stress and grief of losing Henry caused Augusta to have her first of 2 strokes. The rest of it is over here. You said you wanted to ask me some questions. I will. You need.
Well, you need this.
No, well, go ahead. Ask away.
You need to read that, dear.
Yes, dear. I thought you were going to ask me questions, but
No.
apparently she's changed her mind.
I would ask questions based on what you say.
I see. Truth with Tom. Hey, how are you, Truth with Tom? How you doing, bud? Wonderful West Virginia. Hey, well. All right.
Are you sure you don't have us confused, Tom? We're not in West Virginia.
He is. He's in West. He's in Wild
Wonderful
West Virginia. Yeah,
I'm
he's
sorry,
in West Virginia. Yeah, he's in West Virginia. Yeah, the state that forsook the Confederacy because Anyway, but yet they want to now fly the Confederate flag. Actually, the picture I have, the picture I have on the side of the mountain was actually shot in West Virginia, of a giant, and I mean it's a massive Confederate flag.
That's all on one side, huh?
Yeah, well, I'm just trying to figure out. You've got the bodies were described.
That's what you started with me.
Oh, okay. In 1950s, the bodies that Ed would later
you didn't
kill off were basically found in 1957. The townsfolk became so upset that there was an influx of gawkers and reporters. There was also this thing called Geen. I'm having a hard time reading this. I'm sorry.
Do you need me to read it, honey?
Yes, babe. Please.
So now I'm covering yours and mine.
No, well, you can ask me questions. Wisconsin soldiers during the War of Southern Independence. No, we haven't done that one yet. That's next week.
Was that what we're gonna do?
Yeah, I think.
Okay.
I think we just decided.
Okay.
You did not miss the Wisconsin soldiers during the War of Southern Independence. I think that would be a great topic.
Okay. The bodies were discovered in November of 1957 in his home. Upon their discovery, reporters descended on the town, which the townsfolk resented immediately. That said, it did spawn Geen humor, such as what is Ed Geen's favorite dessert?
Ladyfingers.
Several people were thrown out of local restaurants for ordering
Geen burgers,
although there was no evidence of cannibalism.
Nope.
Ed Geen is
Geen,
known.
Hold on, let me interject here. Geen, while he was not a cannibal, he was known. It was later found in the house in 57 to have a skin suit. He had reupholstered several pieces of furniture with human flesh.
Didn't he have a lamp with a skin lampshade?
He had a skin lampshade, and he had a vest, or excuse me, a necklace made of women's nipples.
Beyond creepy.
Yeah. Dead Ant. I'm doing good. How are you?
Ed Gein is known to be the inspiration for several movies, including Psycho, Silence of the Lambs, and Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I'd actually come up with a few others, but I didn't note them down at the time.
No.
As Mutt had said earlier, he was your typical textbook Freudian mama's boy.
Yep.
He had a love-hate relationship with his mother. March 30th, 1958, which was Palm Sunday, the farm was to be sold. However, 10 days before, on March 20th, the farm was mysteriously burned to the ground.
Not so mysteriously, if you ask me.
Right. None of the townsfolk somehow seemed to know anything about how it started, However, it is believed that it was started by the townsfolk, as they did not want gawkers continuously running in and out of their town. Ed Gein's trial was held November 7th, 1968, and lasted all of 1 week. He was found guilty and sentenced to life in prison with no possibility of parole. He died July 26th, 1984, and it was heart failure.
Thank
Correct?
you, Dan. Yes, it was heart failure due to alcoholism, actually. Dan, thank you. I did not know that she had put a copyright strike on that, but thank you. I do truly appreciate.
Who did what?
Dan won against G had put a copyright strike on his video, and he put it back. But once he won this copyright strike, he put it back up, and it was asking to help us out.
Okay.
So
By the way,
we really do appreciate that.
By the way, oddly enough, Gein is buried next to his mother.
Yep.
They have had his burial plot and his headstone, especially. Vandalized, and the headstone has even been stolen. I think it was in 2001. It was found out near Seattle.
Yes.
And they brought it back to Wisconsin and put it in a museum in, I want to say it's Washara County.
Here, hold on, Dan. I'm hugging her for you right now. Here, watch. I'll even show you.
Oh, my hair is a mess.
Don't worry about it. Here, I'm gonna actually.
Don't you need to start the cam?
Yeah, I do need to start the cam. It's right there. Hold on to that. I'm gonna. Here we go. She's whining about her hair, but you know what? It's okay. See, I'm hugging her for you right now. There you go.
Thank you.
But yeah, Gein was an odd bird. He was seen quite by most of the townsfolk as friendly but odd. Which
didn't they also say in some of your research that he was digging up bodies?
Yes,
from the.
They found 11 skulls, but they could only find, I believe it was 8 bodies. So they only
could only confirm the one murder.
Though. Well, they could only confirm the one murder. So yeah. So the question then became, who were these other bodies? But yeah, he was known for sneaking into the cemetery.
Into fresh graves.
So he didn't have to dig as hard. So yeah, this guy was definitely a textbook psycho. He did end up in the Eastern State? Was it Eastern State?
No, Central State.
Central State.
Eastern States, Virginia. Central States, Wisconsin.
That's right. He did end up in the Central State Hospital for the Criminally Insane, where
something similar to that name,
or something similar to that name, where it was said that he would often just either play cribbage with faculty and staff or patients, or sit quietly staring out the window, just watching life go by. He was basically an ideal model patient, quote unquote, since he was a hospital. I won't call him a prisoner, although he should have been. Yeah, he was basically seen as a model prisoner, which kind of goes along with what everybody says about him. I think the trauma from his mother drove him to, and the isolation.
Yes.
From
what I saw, his mother got upset even when he tried to make friends.
Yes, she did. She actually ran several people off. She did. She ran several people who had come to the house to play with Ed when he was a child. She ran them off. She was that controlling. That she was afraid her son would be corrupted by these other children.
Did they say what religion it was?
They did
it
not.
Was, no,
They did
but
not.
it was religious based.
Yes, she was a religious zealot. Was one of the what one of the videos said. So yeah, I mean, he to look at him, he was a mild mannered. He was very,
I saw something that occasionally he would randomly laugh as though he was laughing at a joke that he heard in his own mind.
Yes, that was also true. He would frequently, just break out in a full belly, one of those hearty full belly laughs where, but you're talking about somebody who's mentally ill. So, I mean, that's not uncommon. He was, as I said, the first recognized serial killer in Wisconsin. Mrs. Mudd is going to cover what some would say would be one of the most famous serial killers.
Yeah, and I don't know that there's been any since him at this point.
I don't think
he's
so.
The most recent.
Quite possibly, at least in Wisconsin.
Right. I have the infamous Jeffrey Dahmer as my choice. So I will tell you.
And boy, did she ever do her research.
Well, I will tell you up front that most of my research came from Netflix, right?
Netflix, yes.
Conversations with a Killer, the Jeffrey Dahmer tapes. And believe you me, this attorney that this is based on got a lot of information from him. Dahmer, first of all, was born May 21st of 1960. He was arrested on July 22nd of 1991, so he was 31 years old. The attorney, Wendy Patricus, while she was not the lead attorney, she was an attorney on the defense team. She was one of Dahmer's defense attorneys. Pardon me. She actually recorded over 32 hours of conversation to prepare his defense between July and October.
All right, Truth. Okay, Truth with Tom, thank you for stopping by. And yes, be sure to tune in next week, because we did not know what we were going to do next week until you brought up the Confederate, the troops from Wisconsin. So we will be discussing that next week because you brought it up.
Yeah. She noted that he stated no normal feelings of empathy about what he had done.
Be blessed.
He did not want to talk about his childhood. He stated he was not beaten or abused. His parents did constantly bicker. His mom hit or slapped his dad. When he was about 6 years old, his little brother was born and he got to name him, but his parents then focused on that little brother. And by the way, he chose the name David.
Tom says he actually watched the trial on Court TV.
Cool. I wish I had.
I'm sure my mother probably did.
Well, I was in high school.
My mother was a Court TV junkie.
Yeah, I wasn't at that point. When David was born, the parents focused everything on David, and Jeff was left more and more alone. When she was talking to him, when they started these tapes, he wanted to know why he did what he did and why he had these urges. As a child, he dissected roadkill, but he did not kill any animals.
That's for somewhere.
He did not do well in school. He had no friends. His father was concerned, especially about the no contact with girls. But he knew at the age of 13 that he was homosexual, even though it was contrary to his faith or his church. And he even had some sexual exploration with another boy at age 14 or 15 by kissing or laying together in the treehouse.
Yeah, I think I remember you playing that part.
In 1978, his parents were divorcing. His father was staying in a local motel. His mom took David and moved to Chippewa Falls, Wisconsin.
Chippewa Falls.
Yes.
How far is that from?
I'm
like
not sure.
Beloit?
I'm not sure how far.
Okay.
Obviously, it's north in some degree because Beloit is at the southern border.
I didn't know that.
Yes.
Wait, the southern border? You mean like where the convoy's going?
No.
The convoy's going to Wisconsin.
If Illinois was Mexico,
yeah,
then Wisconsin would be having problems with immigrants.
Oh, okay.
Yes. So this leaves Jeff alone in the family home in Bath, Ohio, and he never speaks to his mother again.
Oh, wow.
Ever? So yeah, ever.
Oh,
he never spoke to his mother again when she left the house in Bath.
So we kind of have opposing situations.
It doesn't say
Gene was a mama's boy because he was constantly under her thumb, whereas Dahmer just never spoke to her again.
And I never saw anything about whether he spoke to David again or not.
And who is David?
David is his little brother.
Ah, okay.
So then again, this is 78. He's got the house to himself. He's 18 years old. He's lonely. He decides to pick up a hitchhiker because he's bored and lonely, and he wants someone to hopefully have sex with. So he picks up this hitchhiker, and that hitchhiker was Stephen Hicks. He took him back to the house. He got the vibe that Stephen was not into the sex idea, but they had some beer and pot. And Stephen indicated that he was ready to leave. Dahmer really didn't want him to go.
Wasn't feeling it, huh?
Yeah. So Dahmer hit Stephen over the head with a barbell.
Wow.
And then proceeded to strangle him.
What is it with barbells?
Well, we'll get to that later.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I jumped ahead of the.
Yeah, you did.
I'm sorry. That'll play into it later, ladies and gentlemen.
So, let me see where I'm at here. Sorry, my notes are a little disorganized. I was trying to get them organized and didn't quite have enough time.
Things have been a little hectic.
Here we go. He put parts of Stephen's body into trash bags, loaded them into his car about 3 a.m. to take to a ravine that was a few miles from the house. He actually got pulled over because he drifted over the central line. They gave him a drunk driving test. He passed. The officer used a flashlight and saw the garbage bags in the back seat. Dahmer explained it away as, my parents are breaking up. I'm alone. I couldn't sleep, so I thought I'd get rid of the garbage.
So he was manipulative.
Convincingly
so.
He's very convincing. He can get away with everything, and it continues. It's a recurring theme in his life.
I see.
After that, he goes to Ohio State for a little while. He attends for 3 months and essentially flunks out. He basically just partied. His dad, Lionel, decided that he should join the army. So he became a field medic. Little education for future use.
Yeah, I think so.
And once again, the drinking. He was just charged because of the drinking.
You fall back to what you know.
Yep. So at that point, he felt guilty, but was indecisive about confessing to Stephen's death. He, quote, knew it was wrong, horribly wrong. He knew how horribly wrong it was, pardon me, end quote. At that point, he then moved in with his grandmother in Milwaukee in 1981. Actually, it's in West Allis, which is a suburb of Milwaukee.
Okay.
Southwest. Dahmer stated, quote, I really made a sincere effort to change the way I was living, to change my desires, to get rid of the homosexual feelings that I had, any sinful thoughts. Started going to church with grandma on a regular basis, end quote. But he stole a mannequin.
Now, excuse me, is this what he quoted to his attorney?
Yes.
Okay.
So yes, and the quotes for them that I have in here are what he quoted, what he stated to Wendy.
Okay. Just so we're clear on that.
Yes. He stole a mannequin from a store in a mall.
Alrighty then.
He used to, quote, play around with it, end quote.
Sure.
After dressing and undressing it, he would pretend it was real.
Talk about your non-binaries.
Wanted to pretend it was a giant Barbie doll.
Apparently.
He had gone to the West Allis Public Library and was minding his own business. And again, at this point, he is still trying to live the clean and narrow life.
He's still fighting the urge.
Yes. A man dropped a note into his lap offering oral sex in this library. While Dahmer did not pursue this offer, it did cause more homosexual thoughts, and he realized how easily it could be obtained. At this point, he was a mixer on the night shift at Ambrosia Chocolate Company, and he started going to gay bars. If he didn't find someone there, he would then often go to a nearby bathhouse.
Now, wasn't the gay community at this time relatively small, so everybody knew everybody in that area?
Kind of, but as I learned there was a special little window of time here that Dahmer was lucky enough to hit for what he did.
I see.
Because of the AIDS epidemic.
Right.
You had a lot of people that were suddenly diagnosed or had the issue, the illness, and died. Or they were diagnosed and moved, or they diagnosed and disappeared.
Right.
So people were disappearing.
So it was not as
an appropriate reason.
Right.
And then you had people disappearing because of him.
And people, it was just thought that it was for the other opposite reason. I got you.
That, and as we'll see, as I would be talking about later, it was thought that the police department tended not to get involved in the gay issues.
Wasn't that a directive from up the chain of command?
Not necessarily up the chain, because the two officers that
I thought I heard while you were doing some research that they had said that it had come from up the chain to a degree.
Necessarily.
Okay.
Not to my understanding.
Okay.
This is something that sounds, I get being submissive and I get being dominant and having those traits.
Right.
But I don't get to this extent. He never wished to submit, only to be submitted to. He started bringing drugs into the bathhouses, sleeping pills. I'm not sure I'm pronouncing this right. Halcyon?
Halcyon.
Okay. He would use these so the partner wouldn't make any demands on him and he could just lay with them longer.
Oh, so he basically tranked them.
Yes, exactly.
Mm.
At one point, a bathhouse owner had to call the EMS because one of Dahmer's partners wouldn't wake up.
Ruh-roh.
No charges were filed. The owner was basically told, if he comes back, call us and don't let him on your property.
Oh, wow.
On November 21st of 1987, he comes across Stephen Toomey.
That name sounds familiar.
Apparently, they get together. They have some heavy drinking. They go to the Ambassador Hotel for the night.
Aha.
At some point, apparently, Dahmer blacks out.
Dahmer blacked out. Okay.
I don't know if we'll never know if Stephen blacked out, but we know that Dahmer blacked out.
Okay.
When he wakes up the next morning, the sheets are bloody, Stephen's face is bloody, and Dahmer's hands are bloody.
Uh-oh.
And Stephen is dead. Dahmer had no plan to do this and no memory of doing this.
Mm.
He went and bought a large suitcase, brought it back to the room, stuffed Stephen's body into the suitcase, took the body back to his grandmother's before disposal.
Wow.
They didn't go into detail what he did with the body before disposal.
Now, by this point, he was living with his grandmother.
Yes, he's still living with his grandmother
in the basement.
Point. He's got a room upstairs,
right?
But he's doing things with the bodies in the basement.
Gotcha.
I believe there's a stench from the basement that Grandma has been complaining about.
I believe I remember hearing that.
Grandma did complain about a stench at one point.
And she later stated she just didn't want to know what was going on in the basement. Yeah, I remember that.
Dahmer would choose victims that had a pleasant physique and whose families did not appreciate or accept the fact that they identified as gay. He would offer them money for allowing him to take nude pictures of them, but it had to be at his apartment.
Trophy pictures.
On January 17th of 88, 8 weeks after Toomey, James Doxtator, 14 years old, at a bus stop in front of a gay bar. Dahmer took him back to Grandma's. She was asleep. As usual, he gave him 5 to 7 sleeping pills to each of his victims in his drinks.
Good. 5 to 7?
5 to 7 of those sleeping pills.
Wow.
I'm thinking, do I have a page that I'm missing here? Yes, I do. That was January. Okay. I can't swear that was the boy that brought the sexual assault case.
Right.
But I'm thinking so. In September of 88, Gerald Boyle, who again, I believe represented him at the trial when he was arrested and then convicted.
The name sounds familiar.
Represented Dahmer in the sexual assault case. He paid a young boy $50 to take pictures of him. No intentions to kill him, and did not do so. The parents took the boy to the hospital as the boy appeared altered. Dahmer convicted of drugging and sexual enticement of the boy. He was sentenced to 1 year work release. The boy was 13. So my mistake, it's not Doxtator. It's a 13-year-old boy.
Okay.
Thing is, You'll hear about that boy again later.
Same boy?
That same boy has another child later.
Okay.
In March of 1989, 23 or 24-year-old Tony Sears. Dahmer takes him back to grandma's, strangles him, preserves his head in acetone, also keeps his genitals, kept these in his locker at work because he's on work release.
What?
He's still on work release.
Gross. Gross.
In May 1990, he moved into the Oxford apartments, into apartment number 213.
Are these the apartments that were
Yes.
predominantly in the black
Predominantly black.
Yeah, okay. Yep.
And this is the apartment.
The apartment.
Yes.
Okay.
In May of 1991, it did not tell me which victim this was, but he drilled a hole in the head, not to kill, but to create a zombie to kill. This is Tony Hughes, pardon me.
Tony Hughes.
Tony Hughes. To keep the victim, Tony Hughes, with him. He then injected the brain with muriatic acid. It killed Tony.
I'm not familiar with muriatic acid.
I'm not either. I can Google it to see what it tells me.
Yeah, well, for those of you who, if anyone knows what muriatic acid is, drop it down in the comments. Let us know. She's looking it up now.
It's a diluted solution of hydrochloric acid that is used for many cleaning tasks.
Oh, okay. So basically, he dumped.
It's a diluted hydrochloric acid.
Wow. And he thought this was a good idea
to help create zombies.
No, Jeff, that's not how that's done.
Dahmer kept his skull. Tony actually had relatives that Dahmer had previously known.
Wasn't he well liked in his apartment complex?
At least some of the neighbors, yes.
That's what I'm saying, yeah.
He, around this time, bought a 5-foot square freezer and he told Wendy that he had done so. When she asked why, he told her to prepare for more.
Okay.
On May 27th of 1991, Conrad
Synthesymphone.
Yeah, you can pronounce it. I can't. This is a young man, young boy.
Okay.
He drilled into him and administered some of the muriatic acid. He drilled straight down 2 or 3 inches. There was no liquid, no blood coming from the wound.
Okay.
Nothing came out. But he did put some of the muriatic acid in. And it, at that point, seemed to achieve Dahmer's desired effect, but there were still issues that Dahmer didn't anticipate. Dahmer went to get beer, and Conrad got out of the apartment and up the alley. A neighbor saw him. He was naked or wearing
next to
underwear.
nothing.
Yeah. And he was incoherent. From hearing what I saw on the video, they were saying that he couldn't stand up. A neighbor saw him and called the police. They arrive and try to question him, but he is so drugged that he's unable to communicate and tell his side of the story. Dahmer happens to return at this point, and the neighbor women try to protect Conorak from him. The police not only disregard the women, they threaten to arrest them if they keep talking.
Wow.
Dahmer simply stated, "He's my boyfriend," and began taking him back to the apartment. That young boy I was just telling you about,
Sent the symptom?
the 13-year-old,
Yep.
Conorak's brother.
Oh, wow.
So the boy that got Dahmer put in jail for the sexual assault, this is his brother.
Makes me wonder if he knew that and it was a revenge
I don't
thing.
believe so. I don't believe
so.
No?
So it just happenstance.
It's just coincidence.
Wow.
And actually, Conorak, many of the victims were Black.
Right.
But Conorak was Laotian.
Mm-hmm.
He actually had one victim that was Spanish, or pardon me, Latino, if not Mexican.
Right.
I know his last name was Guerrero, if I remember correctly.
Weren't his first two victims
white?
Were white?
Yes.
Yeah, I think I remember that in the video.
So yeah, he was the brother of the young boy that he had offered the $50 to take pictures of that led to his previous arrest.
Wow.
The officers escort Dahmer and Conorak back to the apartment. Everything looks fine in the living room.
Right.
If they had just for some reason stepped into the bedroom,
mm-hmm.
they would have found the body of Tony Hughes laying there.
On the bed.
Yes.
Wow.
After the police left, Dahmer injected more of the muriatic acid into Conorak's brain, just a lesser dose. Conorak was dead within an hour of the police departure. He was Dahmer's youngest victim at just 14. And Dahmer had told the police he was 19 and they were just drinking.
Wait a minute, Dahmer, how old was Dahmer at this time?
This was in 1991. So he would have been in May 27th of 1991. So he would have been 31 years old.
And he had a 14-year-old.
19-year-old. He told the police he had a 19-year-old boyfriend.
And they couldn't tell that this boy was obviously not 19.
No, they took the word
wow.
Wow. Yeah.
Somebody failed in their police work.
The two officers, John Balcerzak and Joe Gabrish, were later fired, for failure to perform their duties. Citywide claims of racism went up as the two officers ignored the cries of 5 Black witnesses and took the word of Dahmer. These officers appealed their being fired and won. They were reinstated and awarded their back pay. After Conorak, Dahmer killed weekly. There were 4 more killings between Conorak and his arrest.
Wow.
His neighbors complained to him about the smell coming from his apartment. Because remember, he had these bodies.
Yeah.
And he certainly wasn't getting rid of one before he would bring the next.
He was just stacking.
Yeah. He explained that his freezer quit working and the meat spoiled in it.
Didn't one of his roommates, or not roommates, but one of his neighbors ask him if he didn't at least have a warranty on the freezer?
Yes. The woman who confronted him.
Yeah.
Her husband and Jeff had kind of become friends.
Right.
This man had woken up at 2:30 in the morning to this stench.
I couldn't imagine.
Opened the door and says he saw a mist, like something you see out of the movies in the graveyard.
Mm-hmm.
Went back in, closed his door, and stuffed a towel underneath his door to help block the smell. Went back to bed.
God, I wonder what that mist was.
I don't know if his wife worked third shift or what, but he later told his wife about this odor.
She's going around.
She sniffed. She told him
the
later.
Door hinges, right?
Yeah, door hinges. She sniffed the door hinges. And she later told him that she had done so and that it was coming out of Jeff's apartment. She sat in a lawn chair with her door open and waited for Dahmer to come home and confronted him. And that was his explanation. And her husband, I just can't remember his name, said, well, isn't there a warranty or something on it?
Got you.
He kept photos of at least some of his victims, either unconscious or dead, as well as of those he found most attractive, parts of them that he could preserve, and even eventually participated in cannibalization.
Please hit the like button, folks. There was a lot of research that went into this. A lot of time.
He would utilize, quote, the meatiest parts is how he chose. And he also chose, quote, the parts with the least amount of fat. So oftentimes this was the biceps, the thighs, and the calves. But he also preserved at least one heart and one liver.
Does it say why he was doing this?
I think the heart and liver he was going to try to cannibalize.
Okay.
And he was cannibalizing the biceps, thighs, and calves.
Wow.
And part of the reason, at least part of the reason for the cannibalization was taking them into himself. He keep them with him longer.
So he would become attached.
He pled guilty, but insane. I'm not sure if that was the actual wording for how it was, but that was basically it. The defense brought Dr. Wallstrom from Chicago area, who was a forensic psychiatrist, pardon me.
Forensic psychiatrist, yeah.
Yes. Who diagnosed him as schizotypal, which is a lifelong condition that can cause people to have unusual thinking, beliefs, or mannerisms. That's not what it said earlier. Here, it's a mental health condition marked by a consistent pattern of intense discomfort and with close relationships and social interactions. That's interesting. Okay. And borderline personality disorder. Dahmer was actually going to build a shrine and had already drawn the design of it.
Really?
It was going to have painted skulls on it. There was going to be a full skeleton at each end of it with a painted skull on it.
When you're saying painted skulls, you're talking actual human skulls.
Yes, painted human skulls.
From his victims.
Yes.
Okay.
Actual full skeletons with a painted skull on the end of each of them.
Right.
Yes, right. And he was going to burn incense at each end.
Oh, he was going to turn that into an altar.
Yeah, but he called it a shrine. Dr. Park Dietz was a forensic scientist, psychiatrist for the prosecution. He stated if the victims had agreed to stay with Dahmer voluntarily, Dahmer wouldn't have killed. Therefore, he could control his behaviors. He also stated that Dahmer stated he knew what was wrong at the time of the murders. He covered his tracks by getting rid of evidence and deterring entry into his apartment when he was gone. He showed that he had actually put up false security cameras to deter people from going into his apartment when he was at work and such.
Wow.
And he had to lower his inhibitions by drinking every time he committed a killing.
Well, that would make sense, yeah. That I mean, if you had any modicum of sanity, you would, and you wanted to do something like this, I would think you would have to be in an altered state.
But if you're insane, do you really have to lower your inhibitions?
No, if you're insane. But so what I'm saying is I tend to agree that he wasn't insane. He
Right.
knew what he was doing.
And he's, according to Dr. Dietz, Dahmer stated he knew it was wrong
That was
every time he did the murder.
Nail in the coffin right there.
All the psychiatrists involved agreed basically that Dahmer was alcoholic and necrophiliac. They also agreed he knew it was wrong. The issue they couldn't agree on was whether he could control himself or not.
Mm.
Wendy, the attorney that actually did the tapes, actually received death threats for representing Dahmer.
Wow.
Dahmer was actually found sane.
Wasn't she appointed by the district attorney? Or
No,
the lead defense attorney?
The lead defense attorney, I believe so.
Yeah, that's what I meant. Not the district attorney. I misspoke there. But he basically went to her and said, "I want you to do this."
I would believe so.
Yeah, I believe that's what I remember in a video that you watched the other day.
On February 17th of 1992, Dahmer was sentenced 15 consecutive, not concurrent, consecutive,
one right after the other,
life sentences. This is the stiffest possible penalty the judge could have given him in Wisconsin.
That's because
Wisconsin does not have the death penalty.
I was going to say, they don't have the death penalty either, do they?
He was sent to the Columbia Correctional Institution and placed on suicide watch.
Mm.
They then put him in some sort of segregated.
Segregate. They put him in segregate. It's called segregation.
Right, but it's not. He's alone, but it's not.
He's not in the hole. He's not in isolation. He's in it's called seg.
Right.
Yeah, he's in seg, which is for his own personal protection.
Right.
Yeah, that's why they put him in seg. Right. These high profile.
Right. Versus
inmates. Yeah.
Right.
You don't put them in Gen Pop because they're not going to last the day, generally speaking.
In April of 1994. Dahmer had wanted to be baptized. He was introduced to Ray Ratcliffe, and on this in April of 1994, he was actually baptized. Oddly enough, this was on the same day that John Wayne Gacy was executed. And it was a full solar eclipse that day.
Did they try to equate the two?
No, they just stated that they were.
Okay.
About a year in prison, after about a year in prison, he told Wendy that he was going to ask to be put in general population.
Gen Pop.
He needed human interaction and stimulation. Wendy warned against it. On November 28, 1994, on work detail with Jesse Anderson and Christopher Scarver, who had already been convicted of murder by the same team that convicted Dahmer.
Oh, wow.
Scarver took a barbell from the exercise room.
There we go with the barbells, ladies and gentlemen. I told y'all there was something about them barbells.
And bludgeoned Dahmer over the head with it. And I believe he also killed Jesse Anderson, but they didn't touch on that. According to the prison, Dahmer did not resist the attack.
Wow. Didn't he already state, though, that he kind of wanted to die?
Yeah, actually, when he was arrested, he looked at the officer. Let's see where there was actually a quote.
I thought he said something about it in court as well when he gave his final statement to the judge.
that he had hoped to die. Hope for death.
He
Yes.
hoped for death. Yeah.
But he actually made a statement to one of the arresting. Hold on. Something along the lines of just shoot me now.
That right there would tell me that.
Yeah, here it is. Why don't you just shoot me now for what I did? He told that to Dennis Murphy, detective with the Milwaukee PD.
That would tell me right there that his conscience, or what was left of it.
And when Wendy asked why he was rendering a confession, he says, "Wendy, they found so much in my apartment. You know, the gig is out. So I would prefer to continue talking to them." Now I gotta find where I just was. In here.
I apologize for distracting
That's okay.
you.
Give me just a second.
I just thought it would be. I thought I had heard you say something about that at some point, or had heard something to that effect.
Yeah. After Dahmer's death, Dahmer's possessions, that was all that was left, were actually auctioned. They had planned to auction them off to the highest bidder, with the proceeds being divided between the victims' families. A single philanthropist, which I did not make note of his name, reached out to politicians, businessmen or businesses, and other prominent Milwaukeeans and raised $400,000.
Well, almost $500,000
for the purchase of these items.
And he had how many victims again?
I believe there were 17, but he got 15.
15 consecutives.
Right.
Wow.
And I don't believe that I think Ohio said, you've already got enough. We're not going to charge you. We're not going to deal with it. The one here. But they did go and find the remains.
So
find.
Wow.
Because he actually, if I remember right, he did bury some of that on the property, on the land.
Right. That is spooky.
But this philanthropist raised $400,000, purchased all of the possessions.
Right.
And had all of the items were taken to an undisclosed landfill in Illinois.
Guess they didn't want souvenir. They didn't want souvenir hunters.
No, they didn't want. And the tenants of Oxford Apartments, had a meeting shortly after, from what I understand, relatively shortly after the conviction. And they decided they no longer wanted to live in that apartment building. Not only did they move, that building was then torn down.
Was demolished. Well, yeah, I would say that would have been the right call, to be honest.
They showed footage, and I believe it is chain link fenced around it, and nothing but an empty lot.
Wow.
Grass-filled empty lot.
Wow. Yeah, I wouldn't want to build anything on it. We went from 1 to 3. Well, folks, that covers the two most famous serial killers,
or at least two of.
Well, I would dare to say the two most famous in Wisconsin. Did you grow up hearing any of the stories?
Well, I was in high school when Dahmer was arrested and such.
I see.
I graduated in 1992 in Clinton, Wisconsin, itty bitty town.
Itty bitty town.
Yeah, I actually lived in a village called Chaupier, which is even smaller.
I see.
Well,
we're going to continue our stroll through Wisconsin next week by discussing
their contributions
thanks to Truth But Tom, their contributions to the Civil War. So for those of you who are history minded, I started to say historically minded, but history minded, please feel free to join us next week as we discuss that. We do appreciate all of you. We do know that there will be a number of you who will see this after the fact, because I do know that there are a number of people who are live right now that are subscribed to us who will at least catch part of the show. So we want to say thank you in advance. And we wish you all a very good evening.
We thank you all for all of our subscribers, all of our newbies that decided to pop in.
Yep.
If you haven't already liked and subscribed, please do so.
It does
We
help.
appreciate you all.
It does help. All right. Till next week, gang. Stay safe. Be good to yourselves and each other, and we will see you next week.